Hello and welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I'm talking about couples that will definitely live very happily ever after. So I've seen some other booktubers do this before. They've done both, talked about couples that they think are definitely going to stay together forever, and also some couples that they thought maybe their relationship is a little bit more toxic and their happy ever after may just be a happy for now. But today I'm talking about 7 couples in particular who I think are definitely going to be together till the end of time. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is this couple from Relentless Hunter by Maggie Cole. Now this is book 10 in the Mafia Wars series. So you do have to read 9 books to get to this one. But I've talked about this before and I can assure you it's well worth the read. It's available to download on Kindle Unlimited if you have a Kindle Unlimited account. And this is very much a second chance romance between Brenna and Finn. Now the way Maggie Cole wrote this series is that each couple from book 1 gets their own story, gets their own happy ever after, but the timelines of the stories overlap with each other. So we do get some duplicated scenes across the books, and I know some people don't like that, but I thought it was great to basically see a scene or an event that happens through the series from the eyes of different characters and how kind of they perceived what happened. And also, as we go along, we know that relationships are happening behind closed doors, running in parallel with the other couples, and I think it's a really great way to reveal kind of what happens in the story and how they all get together. Now for me this book is very special because it expands the complete timeline all the way from years before book 1, from the events of book 1, and also carrying on from the end of book 9 all the way through, and we get kind of a glimpse into their futures in sort of 10-15 years time after kind of the storyline ends with this one. But the reason I picked this particular book out and why I think this couple is going to be together forever is because Finn was absolutely a relentless hunter. So we can in a way feel quite sad for this couple because they got together quite young, they were madly in love with each other, and they were going to get married and be together forever. But an event occurs which really triggers all of the events from the whole of the Mafia War series, which basically means that Finn ends up going to prison for 20 years and Brenna disappears. So nobody knows what happens to Brenna, the heroine in this story, but Finn stays devoted to her throughout his time in prison. When he comes out of prison, he devotes his whole time to trying to find out what happened to her, where she is, and ultimately when he finally works out where she's been all this time, we learn the story, we find out everything that's been going on, and these two finally get their second chance at love. Like I say, it's absolutely heartwarming, but absolutely they are staying together. If this couple can still love each other after 20 years, 2 decades, and still pine for each other, still love each other, and when they finally get together, kind of forgive everything that has happened between them, still be massively in love with each other, then there is absolutely no way they are splitting up. Now they're back together. Finn is never letting her go again, that's for sure. Okay, so another couple that I think are going to be together forever no matter what is a couple from this book here, The Host. Now The Host technically isn't what I would consider a romance, but I definitely think it's a love story. And this is quite an old book. Obviously The Host by Stephanie Meyer has been around a long time. I actually don't know the publication date. When was it? So 2008. So it's a pretty old book, but I absolutely love this one. I talked about it recently in my July wrap up because I listened to the audiobook of this one for like the 20th time or something. I've listened to the audiobook for this book a lot and I highly recommend it. It's narrated by a lady called Kate Redding. So essentially what happens in this book is that these parasitical aliens come from out of space, insert themselves into human bodies and pretty much take over the planet. So the aliens, which are called souls, occupy the human bodies, and for most for most humans, the humans disappear and the aliens completely take over. But there's a small group of humans who are aware of what's going on. They haven't yet been caught by the aliens, and so they're kind of a bit of a freedom fighter group, if you like, trying to survive in this new world. And one of the, or two characters basically, we have Melanie Strider and Jared. They happen to meet each other while they're both scavenging for food. They start a relationship, they fall in love, and they mean everything to each other. This is a very, very deep and meaningful love, and they are very much reliant on each other to survive in this kind of like what is now post-apocalyptic world for them, although the rest of the world moves on. Now one day Melanie Strider is caught, and an alien parasite is put into her head, and the alien is known as Wanderer. Melanie doesn't disappear like most humans do. Her consciousness still lives inside her body, and she can communicate with the alien Wanderer. And Wanderer and Melanie form a friendship. Ultimately they form a friendship, and Melanie shares Jared with Wanderer, and Wanderer herself falls in love with Jared, and she leaves society and tracks down the human colony, or the human outpost, if you like, so that she can get back to Jared. And so I just think Melanie and Jared are never ever splitting up. They love each other. They will always love each other, even when Melanie's body is taken over by another alien. Her love just lasts and lingers, and it's so powerful that even the alien falls in love with Jared as well. So it's a very, very powerful story. Like I say, it's not technically a romance. There's no steam in this one at all. But I wanted to bring it up because they are one of my favourite couples. It's one of my favourite books of all time, and Melanie and Jared stand out for me as a couple that their love will absolutely never die. Then the next one I wanted to recommend was Rest in Witchface by Juliette Cross, and this is book 5 in the Stay a Spell series. I've spoken about this one before, and it's a second chance paranormal romance between Jules and Ruben. So basically Jules is the head of the witches. In fact, she heads up the paranormal community in the New Orleans area, and Ruben is a vampire, and he heads up the vampire clan in New Orleans. Now they very much had a relationship, but they had to go their separate ways, and 12 years have now passed. Ruben has always held out a flame for Jules. He has been wanting to get back together with her for years. He never wanted to split up in the first place, but Jules has always been keeping him at arm's length. And until the events of this particular book, where they have to go on a bit of a road trip to speak to other paranormal groups and covens around America, but also they go to the UK as well, and therefore they are brought back together in forced proximity via a road trip, and they kind of rekindle their relationship. And I just think if their love can survive 12 years apart, and they can still feel exactly the same about each other and want to be together and finally get their happy ever after, I think this couple are now never going to split up. They're going to be together. And luckily for them, because they are paranormal beings, like I say, Jules is a witch and Ruben is a vampire, then they're also slightly longer lived than a normal human, so they've got plenty of years left to be together as well. The next one I wanted to talk about was Broken by the Horde King by Zoey Draven, and this was book 4 in the Horde Kings of Dakar series, and this was my absolute favourite of the whole series. I really like this series overall, but book 4 was the standout for me, and one of the first 5-star ratings I gave this year. So this is kind of like a sci-fi alien warrior romance, and it's also a second chance romance as well. And this couple is Kiran, the Kiran of Rath Achille. He is one of the Horde Kings, and Maeva. Now they were childhood best friends. Maeva is a human. She was brought up by the Dakari people, And she was very, very good friends, almost best friends with Kiran when she was growing up. And Kiran really kind of like took her under his wing and looked after her when all the other kids were sort of being horrible to her and picking on her because she was human and she wasn't a Dakari. And Maeva absolutely fell in love with Kiran, and the night that he was due to go away to become a Horde king, she kind of confessed her love to him and presented herself in public to kind of the villagers, and he completely stomped all over her heart and publicly declined her offer. She was absolutely devastated and distraught, and he was also quite unhappy by the turn of events and left to go off to train to be a Horde king. And like I say, she was left absolutely devastated, distraught, and very, very ashamed and embarrassed about what happened. And then 9 years pass, and eventually Kiran comes back to the village. He is now a Horde king, and he needs a healer for his Horde, and he comes and specifically asks if Maeva will be his healer, because she's been training as a healer in the 9 years that he's been gone. And she agrees to go, but only for the season, because there are some pregnant women who need specifically a healer. And she said she'll go for the season, but she's not staying, and absolutely they're not rekindling their relationship. But of course, by this time Kiran has realised his mistake, and he sets about grovelling and trying to win her back and doing everything he can to change her mind so that she will rekindle a relationship with him. I absolutely loved this book and this couple. The pining was absolutely palpable from the first page. You could absolutely feel their love that they had for each other, and it was heartbreaking to see that he rejected her. But so good to see his enlightenment, the fact that he realised he'd made the wrong decision, and basically the grovel that he went through in order to win her back. And I just think if they can still be friends after 9 years, and that Maeva can still love him and find forgiveness for what he did to her, and he can you know, come back and apologise and make it up to her, then absolutely I think this couple are going to be together forever. Now the next one is a recent read, and I'm so glad I read it. I had been putting off reading a Pam Godwin book for some time. Everyone said how amazing she was, and I absolutely believed every word that it said. I actually had Sea of Ruin on my TBR, it's still on my TBR, but I just, the other day I was just in the mood for a dark romance, and I decided to dive right in. And boy did I dive right in to the deep end with Deliver by Pam Godwin. I absolutely loved this one, gave it 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And it's book 1 in the Deliver series, of which there's 9 books. This is, like I say, it's a dark romance, but also it's quite suspenseful and almost like a psychological thriller in a way, just because of how dark it is, and it goes through lots and lots of like twists and turns. You don't really know what's going on or who people are or who's telling the truth, and so I found it absolutely riveting. I was on the edge of my seat throughout, and at one point when at the 80% mark I even had to like put the book down, do a bit of pacing, went out for a walk, just because it was so gripping, but I needed a little bit of a break before I kind of went into the final leg of the book. But anyway, that aside, like I say, I absolutely loved it. But the reason this book is in here is because of this couple, Josh and Liv. And it seemed to me that they were absolutely destined to be together. It was like, it was their absolute destiny that they would find each other, and that they would be together. Now, essentially what this book is about is that Liv is a deliverer. It's her job to kidnap people and train them to the standard that the master has required, because ultimately she's training these people that she kidnaps to be slaves, and then they're sold into sex trafficking, sex slavery. But they're specifically got, you know, that they have a specific buyer basically. So somebody requests the purchase, so they specifically ask for a certain type of person with certain characteristics. And in this case, Liv, like I said, is the trainer, she's the deliverer, she's the person that basically kidnaps them, trains them, and then hands them over to their new master. And Josh is the person she selects for this particular master. He has requested a young man in his 20s who is still a virgin and who is heterosexual but hates women, and so of course she has to try and train him to hate women, and it's all very, very dark. But like I say, it seems like Josh and Liv are destined to be together because and I think Pam Godwin did some amazing things in here by planting little tiny seeds that you kind of piece together later, and it all stems around the number 54. So basically Josh is a American football player. His jersey has the number 54 on it, and Liv's name, L-I-V, the Roman numerals of course make up the number 54. Plus there's loads of other little Easter eggs in there around a Rubik's Cube being one of Josh's favourite puzzles, which has 54 squares, and just various things like that. So throughout, Pam Godwin did an amazing job, I think, of peppering in these tiny little facts that kind of all came together to make you absolutely believe that this couple were absolutely destined to be together. Like I say, I absolutely loved it. Extremely dark. Read your trigger warnings if you are not used to dark romances, but I loved it so much. I would definitely be reading more of Pam Godwin's work, and in fact I've already started book 2 in the series because I loved it so much. So I'll let you know how I get on with that in my August wrap up. So another book that was a recent read that I want to recommend is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne, and this is an historical romance. And it's book 1 in the Victorian Rebels series. And the couple in this that I want to talk about is maybe kind of spoilery, because part of the plot is that the hero has a dual identity. Now, as a young boy, he is known as Duggan Mackenzie, and he is in an orphanage. He is the bastard son of Lord Mackenzie, but his father doesn't acknowledge him, and obviously he's been put into an orphanage. And the female main character is Farah, and she is also a lady. She is also from a high birth, but unfortunately her parents have passed away, and so she's placed into the same orphanage as Duggan in the Highlands, until she comes of age, when she is supposed to marry one of her father's friends. Now, Duggan and Farah form a very strong friendship. They become childhood sweethearts, and they perform a fake marriage ceremony. And then very soon after that, Duggan ends up killing the priest who looks after this orphanage while defending Farah. And he ends up being arrested and put into a boys' prison, where he spends quite a few years being very, very poorly treated, abused, and he turns into a completely different man. In fact, he goes so far as to change his name, and we know him as an adult as Dorian Blackwell, who is now out of prison. He is a criminal mastermind, but also extremely wealthy, and he's kind of like, you know, a historical romance mafia boss. He is head of the criminal underworld. He's amassed loads of wealth. He's got a lot of loyal men who will absolutely protect him, protect his identity, but he's also got some legitimate businesses that mean that he can you know, move around in the higher classes in society. But he's been looking for Farah for years, because Farah goes missing from the orphanage and never ends up marrying the man that she is due to marry. And this is because the night that he is arrested, Farah runs away. She follows him. She keeps up with where he is. Every night she leaves food for him outside the prison in the hope that you know, he will have enough nourishment, until one day she hears that he has actually been killed, or he's passed away, basically, is no longer alive, and she then believes that he is dead. But she has changed her identity because she did this fake marriage with Duggan when she was younger. She now goes by the name of Farah Mackenzie and tells everyone that she's a widow, and this helps to keep the men away She wants no one if it isn't Duggan. And she goes to work for Scotland Yard as sort of an administrator for the police force and a bit of a typist. She types up notes when they interview people. And this puts her in the path of Dorian Blackwell, because one day he ends up being in an interrogation room and she is the person typing up the notes, and then Dorian realises who she is, and this is the person that he's been looking for years. And then he proceeds to kidnap Farah, have her in close proximity, forces her into an arranged marriage, well, forces her to marry him, and all this time she doesn't actually know who he is. So this is sort of part of the plot, and like I said at the beginning, that's why it's a bit spoilery in a way, because although I personally knew from the very beginning, I think it's very obvious that Duggan is Dorian, the heroine herself is completely oblivious to this fact, and fights him every step of the way. That said, the reason this is in this video, this couple is in this video, is because these two are childhood sweethearts. They've loved each other since they were very, very young. They, you know, go through a lot together, but also a great deal of pain and sorrow and suffering while they've been apart. But this hasn't stopped them from loving each other, wanting to be together again, and ultimately when they find themselves in each other and they find love again with each other, I think it's a really, really beautiful story, a beautiful ending, and absolutely nothing is going to pull this couple apart ever again. And the last one is a bit of a wild card, really. It is Grieved, Lost by Adelaide Forrest, and this is book 3 in the Blandy Crime Syndicate. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a mafia romance, but it's also another forced sort of marriage situation, a captive situation, and even a bit of a stalker romance as well. So in this one we're following Ryker and Calla. Now Calla is a widow, she's got 2 children, and she was married to a police officer who was actually a dirty cop. He was helping and working with the mafia. And Ryker is a member of the mafia, and it's his job. He's a bit of the enforcer, really. He's the interrogator, but he also does the investigation into background checks and stuff like that. So when Calla's husband first wanted to work with the mafia, he was assigned to basically do a bit of checking up on this policeman, make sure everything was legit from the mafia point of view, and as a result he did a bit of stalking, and he saw Calla with what at the time she only had 1 child, instantly fell in love with her and has been stalking her ever since. Now, unfortunately, Calla's husband dies in the line of duty, and this is then Ryker's opportunity to step in. And while he does give Calla a year to mourn, once the year is up, he absolutely goes after her. He's been preparing, he's got the house ready, he knows what he's going to do with the kids, and he absolutely steamrollers her into moving in with him, marrying him, and various other things as well. There's absolutely very little consent in this book, in all aspects. She had, like Calla the heroine, she pretty much has no choice. There's no arguing with Ryker at all, and although she is very attracted to him, does end up falling in love with him, but it's a very, very frustrating relationship because Ryker never ever bends, never ever gives her an opportunity to make her own choices, and it is very frustrating. However, the reason I've put this couple in here is because I absolutely think they're going to be together forever, if for no other reason than because Ryker is never letting her go. Even if she decides that she wants to leave him, wants to divorce him, that is never going to happen. Ryker is not letting her go, and I cannot see them ever splitting up. So I end with a bit of a wild card there, but I thought it was a fun one to throw in at the end. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's just 7 couples that I think are going to be together forever, and also from books that I highly recommend, and would recommend you read if you haven't yet done so. So I'm really interested to know if you've got any couples that you think are going to be together forever, and also some couples that maybe you think aren't. And my plan is to do another video at some point in the future with some couples that I think their relationship is so toxic that while they get a happy ever after, it may end up being just a happy for now. I'm not quite sure when I'll put that one up, but hopefully it won't be too far away. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I forgot to write down who the really struggling tonight, aren't I? And horrified by this, Farah. It's Duggan, isn't it? Is it Duggan? Well, I shouldn't even say that, should I? Totally spoiled that. I will let you know how I get on with that in my August wrap up. I talked about it recently in my what month are we in? Yeah. And I'm not explaining this very well, am I? This is, like I say, book 10 in the Mapping Wars series, so I don't need to repeat that. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. Right. See what's going on today then.